Welcome to Be With Champions. I'm your host, Greg Bennett. Well, and today I have a chat with my favorite person in the world, my wife, Laura Bennett. And I've had several requests for her to come on the show because I keep talking about her on different episodes. And finally, I was able to lock her in. We had to get up at 3 a.m. to record this one with the kids asleep, but finally I was able to get her. So I think it was well worth it, and I hope you enjoy it. Laura describes some great stories through this one. In 2003, her sprint finish against Michellie Jones at the it.She World Triathlon Championships. Again, in 2007, her World Cup win at the Hyvee World Cup was just some great insights. Laura really describes how she took control and 100% responsibility for her life and career. And there's just so many great takeaways in this one. Laura's going to be joining me as a co-host in 2021 for some episodes. So this was a nice little prelude to that. So I hope you enjoy this show. But before we go on, if you want to go to bennettendurance.com/media, you can get the show notes, timestamps, coupon codes for the sponsors there, and any links that I might talk about in the show will be there as well. So that's bennettendurance.com/media. Secondly, please subscribe and please keep sharing this show. It's great that the show is growing and gaining some great traction. I really appreciate your support with that. And finally, please keep the feedback coming. Let me know what you think. You can do that on the social media platforms: Instagram, I'm Greg Bennett World; Twitter, I'm Greg Bennett 1; or Greg Bennett on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can also give me some feedback on iTunes, and I do read those, and I really, really appreciate it. This was a really special one for me, guys, so I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Before we start, I've got to give a quick shout out to the brands that make this show possible. The only brands I'm working with are brands that provide products that I use daily and truly believe in. These products support my immunity, they help improve my recovery and my focus. First up, my friends at Athletic Greens. I love this company and I love their all-in-one daily drink. It's become a part of my morning routine. I'm heavily focused on supporting my immunity and boosting my energy and helping my gut health, but I want to do it naturally. And I found that support with Athletic Greens, a whole food sourced green drink that tastes great and there's no hassle. It's delivered straight to your door. And it's a highly absorbable powder that takes seconds to mix with water, so there's no clumpiness to deal with. I can't believe a green drink sourced from whole foods can actually taste so good. Personally, I truly love it. It's developed from a complex blend of 75 vitamins and minerals. It's packed with adaptogens for recovery, probiotics and digestive enzymes for gut health, and vitamin C and zinc citrate for immune support. So Athletic Greens is designed to help fill the nutritional gaps in your diet. And there's a great offer going on now for you to give it a try. Simply go to athleticgreens.com/Greg to claim our special offer of 20 free daily travel packets with your first order. $79 added value. And get Athletic Greens delivered straight to your door. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Greg. This show is also brought to you by my friends at Hyperice. Some of these products I've been using for almost a decade. Makers of the award-winning Hypervolt, the world's most powerful percussion massage device featuring Quiet Glide technology. Hyperice is a wellness tech company that makes devices designed to help you move better. From handheld massage devices to vibrating foam rollers, thermal technology, and the Normatec compression systems, Hyperice helps you warm up faster, recover quicker, and simply move better. Used in professional training rooms throughout the NBA, the NFL, MLB, the MLS, Ironman, and other professional organizations for well over a decade. Designed to help improve circulation, flexibility, and relieve tension. Get $50 off all percussion devices now, no code needed, and get an additional 10% off with code GREG10 at hyperice.com. That's hyperice.com, HYPERICE.com, and use code GREG10 for 10% off. All right, because of huge demand, I have an incredibly special guest today, a champion athlete that has 4 World Championship medals. She's got 4 US national titles. She's been to 2 Olympic Games. She's won a multitude of wins, none bigger than the Hyvee Triathlon back in 2007 and the enormous check that went with it. She's an incredible person, someone that cares deeply about helping others try and optimize their own lives. And she's someone that I've worked with for the last 20 plus years on helping me manage my ego and managing my emotions and just helping me perform better every single day. No, I might be a little biased, but I think she's probably the greatest person to ever walk this planet. Welcome and thanks for joining me on Be With Champions, Laura Bennett. Good morning. How are you?
Well, good. Thanks, Greg. Thanks so much for the intro.
Now, who would have thought, huh? 3 a.m. 3 a.m. We're getting up for a podcast with the little ones asleep. Who would have thought, huh?
I know. That's what it takes nowadays. You used to get up in anxiety, and now it's anxiety for taking on the little kiddos all day long. No, I think, yeah.
Well, it was funny when we walked to the car this morning, we both felt like, gosh, this feels like a race morning. It had the feel. We're down in South Florida here, so we had the feel and the smell of getting up early, walking over to the car, 3 a.m. And both of us almost had that. I felt like our blood pressure and our heart rate started going up immediately. And it was like, hang on, no. We're just getting up to go have a chat with each other. It's just that I've come into the studio and you're home with the kids.
Exactly. I know that. It's amazing how that feels. It's like the Sunday night feeling of before having to go to school on Monday and you haven't finished all of your homework or something. You've got that anxiety of like knowing that you're going to jump into like cold water or I don't know, before the race, did I get my nutrition right? Or
I know.
have I gone to the bathroom yet? Just whatever it was that caused you to have anxiety before a race beyond just wanting to perform at your highest level.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it? Because it's been 4 years since we've both raced, and yet that anxiety, that race morning anxiety still hits us, even though we're not going to a race. And the reason why we did get up at 3 a.m., well, one, both of us were awake. But secondly, we have the two little ones that could be getting up anytime sort of after 7. And so we wanted to make sure we gave ourselves a fair bit of time before we got going. So I guess while we kind of ramble on here, tell me, how does being a mum of an 8-month-old and a 2.5-year-old compare to being a professional triathlete?
Oh, it is way harder. I don't know. No, I think I've always had respect for women and mothers in particular in the sense of like, that selflessness and, the gift of having a child is really, it really truly is a gift. I think you're giving all of yourself emotionally and mentally and physically too now as I see my body change after giving birth twice. And I think it's, as we pushed the envelope on when to have kids. And so I always, had said to you basically that I don't know if I want to be locked into that emotional captivity, because I had an idea that it's going to be like that. You're going to love these little creatures as much more than yourself. You give your life in a second for them. So I think that it's way harder in that respect. I mean, sport, I felt so privileged to be able to do that as a profession and have such a great life and to meet you and to be able to go and explore the world together and explore sport and, try to become your best self in that, challenge of, becoming your highest level in sport, really. And so I just think that it's one of those that it's kind of a choice. Whereas once you have kids, it's not really a choice. It is a reality that there is nothing else but, you're in it and you're in it for the rest of your life. And so I think in that respect, it's a lot harder, but I don't know. I kind of feel privileged to have been able to do what I did in sport and have those opportunities and now have the opportunity to experience this. And I think, having learned my life's lessons through the sport, it's really kind of rolled into helping me take on having two little ones. Now, I wish possibly had started a little bit earlier, but because this is definitely a young man's game for sure, or young
Yeah.
women's game for sure. Because it is full on, lots of energy you have to give, and the patience that you need, and in some respects, being older, it helps you feel a little bit wiser and a little bit calmer about making decisions. But at the same time, the emotional level is at its all-time highest. So you kind of feel like hindered in that respect, that feel like you're always trying to catch up. But yeah, it's definitely seems more challenging. I think the sleep deprivation and has never been like this with sport. You could take a nap any time of day, if you were tired, or sleep in if you wanted to. But yeah, nowadays it's kind of, nope. You got somebody either like looking you in the eyes if you're trying to take a nap, or, or you got to take care of them, at least at this stage.
It's funny, isn't it? I think I've described it with you before, where I feel like being a professional athlete, you can be either a 0 or a 10 in terms of how you're living, and a 10 out of 10 is you're optimizing with everything you've got intently, what you've got control over, and everything's about you and performance. And it's the kind of thing you can train really hard all day and then come home, sit in a pair of Normatec boots for 60 to 90 minutes, watch Netflix, eat your dinner on your lap. You remember those days?
Oh yeah. That's so nice.
and it's like, so that's being a professional athlete, 0 or 10, you're all in. And parenting for me is you live between a 3 and a 6. So you're never quite doing anything as well as you would hope. And parenting is, for people that are out there going, yeah, I kind of get this, is there's no real scoreboard. You're just doing the best you can with the knowledge you have at the time.
Exactly.
But you never switching off completely. And that's why that 3, you just kind of live in this constant state of a little bit of anxiousness. And so
absolutely.
And look, we've had it, we've chosen to do it this way, where we haven't got sort of live-in help or nannies and all this. We're doing it, we're doing it together, and it is full on. So we have chosen to do it that way. But it definitely does feel like we're always on. So I love that. Look, I was told that I talk about you far too much on each episode. And when I said in the introduction that through demand, well, I have had a lot of people actually give me feedback. Would you stop talking about Laura and just bring her on to chat about, your life?
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, well,
we can't finish each other's sentences, so it's almost as if we're one at this point in our lives, being together for 20 years. But yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. I really do. I think I'm in unbelievable company on who you've had on thus far, and I really, I feel honored to be on here.
Well, I've been begging you to come on for the last 8 months. Actually, you were my first test interview. We did that back last sort of October, November, and I do have that somewhere. I can probably bring that old one up. But I was excited to get you on, and you are worthy of being on the show amongst the guests that I've had. So it is fantastic. So what I'd like to do right away and is just, let's wind the clock back so people can get to know you a little bit, and just tell me, when did you sort of find your passion for endurance sports or triathlon specifically?
Well, I think, growing up in a family that my dad, was active every single day, running. When he got into triathlon later, my brothers were very active too. They would always, be going to running races, my dad and my brothers, when I was growing up. And I think, I think it's just kind of in me or in you, as a kid, whether you're going to be super active or not. And so I never wanted to miss out on going to one of those races. So I'd ask my dad to wake me up. If he was going to a running race, I'd ask first if there was they called them fun runs back then. And for my, I think I was 8 when they started doing some running races, or when I got to go. And, he said, "Look, I'm not waking you up." And I said, "Well, please, you wake me up." Like, please do. Like, I don't want to have to set an alarm at that age. But I said, "Please don't leave without me." So they would just grab me and throw me in the car, and I got to go to the running races with them. And that's kind of how, like, being active out in the in public kind of started. Otherwise, I don't think there was a day I wasn't outside playing with my friends or, we would be running from a pool, jumping into the, intercoastal off our dock. And then, it didn't matter. We were always outside and, playing all sorts of sports. And I think just growing up in that super active lifestyle, I think it kind of became clear that that was something that was important to me every single day. And, being in a family where, your older brothers are really active and your dad's active, it kind of made it easy for me. And then, my next door neighbor was a swimmer, and his mom kind of encouraged me to start swimming, like more on a swim team and everything. And that happened when I was about 12. And so I went from running and, doing fun runs and stuff with my dad and brothers to a little more scheduled kind of swim practice and things like that when I was 12. But my brothers got my dad into triathlon about that same time, around 12 years old. And so we started doing a few triathlons. And so there was Iron Kids back then. I think you had Hunter Kemper on, and he talked a lot about that. I wasn't quite as ingrained as he was, being national champions and things like that of Iron
Four
Kids.
times national champion. I think that was the highlight of his resume, was a 4-time national Iron Kids champion.
That's amazing. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I think we basically did a few of those with my next door neighbor and a few of the swim team kids. I think we went out to Arizona once and did one of the races out there. So we did travel a little bit for those kind of races, but not crazy. And that kind of introduced me to triathlon at a young age. And so I kind of filtered that triathlon through swimming and running through grade school and high school. But in grade school, I did every sport: basketball, soccer, softball. Even I think into high school was doing all of those sports. So it was kind of, I really loved to be a part of any sport I could do. I mean, even to backyard football I grew up with quite a few boys around, so that were my age, and there weren't really any girls. And if there was, they were kind of boring sitting inside, unfortunately, at the time. So I was on my own against the boys playing football until we all kind of hit puberty and they got big and the hits started to hurt. So I had to stop playing with them. But otherwise it was, basically a young life full of sport. And so when I got into high school and was swimming and running, I was a better runner coming out of high school. And so I kind of looked at schools for both swimming and running. And I kind of thought about, at the time, swimming was kind of a little bit more consuming my life. And so I looked into swimming in the sense of like, okay, well, all the swimmers around me, a lot of them were even making the 4 years, I think, because they had started at, say, age 8 or something and were fully ingrained in just swimming for that whole period of time from 8 years old to college. And so they never really made it through 3 to 4 years of college swimming. And I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. I thought, well, okay, well, maybe I should focus on swimming because I can I can run the rest of my life, but swimming seems to have, such a short life. Why don't I go and experience that and see what I can do there? And so I decided I would, look at schools for swimming and see if I could pick up a scholarship or something. And that kind of switched me over to focusing purely on swimming in my last few years of high school. And I was still running, but basically, trying to do my best to try and see if I could get college paid for and see if I could go to a good school. So I looked at a few schools for that, University of Florida, Alabama, and then I found SMU, which one of my swimming mates from down here had gone to. He was 2 years older than me or something. And I loved it. It was such a family environment kind of, it was a small school and the girls were actually all from European countries for the most part. They did really good recruiting. And most of them were Olympians from their countries. And so I had the great opportunity to go there. And I wasn't good enough. I'd made junior nationals. I hadn't made senior nationals or anything. And most swimmers, if you're going to try and get a scholarship, have at least done that much, if not made Olympic trials. And so I asked to get in there, and, of course I couldn't get a scholarship in, but I walked on, and so that means that there's no scholarship. You come and you pay your own dues and they let you swim, but there's no support. And so I did so, and after my first year, I had done so well that they offered me a scholarship for my second, third, and fourth years. So that was really encouraging, and my improvement went through the roof. I don't know if just focusing on one sport and then plus all of the, the dry lands and the weights, and basically swimming or focusing on what you were doing for about 5 hours a day, 2 swim practices and a gym of some sort, really accelerated my growth in the sport. And so, yeah, I was really happy to have, focused on swimming there. And then, I played a little bit with triathlon after, between, my high school years and everything. I think one year I went from track state championships to the next day we drove to a triathlon and I think it was sailfish triathlon back then. So it was kind of mixing that in, but still trying to keep it a part of my life. So I think just coming from there and fully, always trying to find the next thing to do. It kind of my passion was definitely sport. The focus on triathlon kind of came right after I did world championships in Manchester. And that was when after my first year in college, and they basically said, I came back after doing triathlons after my first year. They'd offer me a scholarship, and I came back probably 5 or 10 pounds lighter than I was the first year of college. And my coach said, okay, well, we want you to be a part of, our scholarship team, but you have to stop triathlon.
Wow.
I need you to stay focused on swimming, and, you've come in a little bit lighter. You've lost a lot of muscle. And back then swimmers were a lot bulkier and thicker. I was 25 pounds heavier than I am today, at least. And I could only wear extra large t-shirts to look normal without it looking like it's choking me. So I definitely bulked up quite a bit. Granted, my diet was terrible in college. I didn't have as clean and healthiest diet as I do now, but and that definitely plays a huge role. But they said, we really need you to just focus on swimming if we're going to give you this scholarship. And so that kind of honed me in on just swimming. And so I didn't really come back to triathlon until I graduated university, and I was going to swim another summer out there and at SMU and just, do what, the summer program basically. And then I realized I had a phone call from Tim Yount, and this is at USA Triathlon, and they had a collegiate program going. And he said, Laura, why don't you come out and do triathlon with us, because I had been a junior with them. So they kind of kept track of me. And I said, I don't think I'm going to get back into triathlon. I'm not sure if I'm really that keen to do it. And, after a couple of months of swimming, and I'm like, where am I going with this? Swimming wasn't necessarily professional at the time. Now you can go on after university and make probably a good living with it. But back then it wasn't really something you would do. And there was nothing education-wise that I was really like, oh, yes, I want to be doing this or that. I'd wanted to go to school for physical therapy, but SMU didn't have it. But at the time, I was more interested in swimming, so pursuing that. And so I kind of said, okay, well, I'll just go and do an undergraduate degree in sciences. But 2 years after doing that, I thought, well, geez, now I'm going to have to get a job when I get out. To support, to support my physical therapy, because it's not in this school. And so I switched to business because I was like, I need to get a job, so I'll get a business degree, and then that way I can support if I want to go back and do physical therapy. So I had a lot of a lot of things in motion at the time, and basically had no idea I would be doing professional sport had I come out of university. So when Tim Yount brought this to my attention, it took me about a month or so to figure it out. And my dad had called with that information, and I was like, "No, Dad, I'm not doing that." He's like, "Well, you know what? I'm going to just get you your your USAT license. You can decide what you want to do." So he left it in my hands, and about, like I said, a month or 2 months later, I called Tim Yount and I said, "Okay, what's the deal? I'd like to come out." And so we did. And that was such a great opportunity that they provided. And I really appreciated them, reaching out to me, because it set me up for the rest of my life, and having all the opportunities that came. And so we basically moved out to Colorado Springs, and they had a collegiate program going on. And they basically took care of your room and board, and then they paid for you to go to certain races, and then the rest was on you. And so, that gave me the opportunity to go to, in 97, it was World Champs in Perth as a junior, or not as a junior, as a age grouper, and 20 to 24. And I did okay there. I was second, I think, in my age group. And then, basically, I maybe with that, or maybe a couple other races, ended up getting my pro card, as they call it over here, in after that. And so 98 is when I pretty much started to become a professional in triathlon. And that put us right on the World Cup scene. And I think having done swimming as a collegiate sport, I actually made the right decision in the end, because it actually put me in the race from the start. And it took me a little while to catch up on the bike and the run, but at least I was in the game right away. And I think that was such a huge advantage with the way the sport had changed, because it became draft legal. And, it was so important to be a part of a pack, and being a part of the front pack at the time. We had great swimmers with Loretta Harrop, Nikki Hackett, Barb Lindquist, Sheila Taramina. So it was a really good group, and I was hanging on tooth and nail. I mean, coming into triathlon from swimming, my swimming, I was not a 1,500 meter swimmer. I was a 100-meter fly. And by the end of my swimming in the 4 years, I was 200, because I'd put on so much bulk and strength. But it was amazing coming into triathlon how good a swimmer I was at that, like kind of going, what? I can't swim 1,500 meters, but, with triathletes, you can. And then, but, I had to pick up the bike and the run pretty quick, and I had the heart and lungs, but I would get injured a lot because I didn't have the foundation of strength. And
we've seen that a lot, actually. We see that a lot with, especially the US team that tend to go and have their 3 to 4 years at college doing one particular sport. And they quite often are swimmers, and they got these enormous aerobic engines, but the chassis, if you like, the legs aren't quite strong enough to keep up with the engine. It takes a few years to adapt to that bike and running strength.
It does.
Yeah. So sorry to interrupt you.
No, that not at all.
Thought, but I love all of that, because what's interesting is since almost day one, you've been wanting to do sport. It's like this, I feel like, and the amount of people I've had on this show that sort of started off as athletes, but sport, whether you've gone and studied or whatever, was in their blood, and it's what they wanted to do. There was something special. And there is one story that you've told me before that you left out in there, was you were so excited about swimming as a kid that you would be in the car waiting for your dad to go to swim squad at 5 a.m. in the morning with your cap and goggles already on and in your swimsuit. Am I right?
Yeah. Embarrassingly, yes. I think I was just super keen to give it everything I had. I don't know. I think, you could say there was a little bit of intent there of wanting to be the best I could be at all times. But it made me anxious, I think, to be late to swimming or to late to what I needed to do, and
You've used that anxiety very well, that anxiousness, that have to be first in the pool. All throughout our lives, you've always been the one first in the pool, or I'm always the one dragging my feet, diving, but you've always brought that intensity about you that it's like, okay, if we're going to do it, let's go all in, right? I mean, that's kind of in your DNA. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like the commitment is there. Let's do this. I want to know that I've checked every box and crossed every T. Yeah, for sure. I know.
The other thing about you is like you mentioned, you talked about playing football and hanging out with the boys and doing all those sports. And I think you were probably one of the most athletic women that I've ever met. Now triathlon has a lot of athletes and people that have large engines, and they tend to be fairly strong. You brought that athleticism. I don't think you ever didn't have the fastest transition 1 or transition 2 in the sport. That kind of ability to jump off bikes and jump on bikes and put on your gear. That to me is true athleticism. And that kind of a gift is often seen, we go look at sports like soccer or tennis or very agile sports where we're moving a lot. But then you've gone and chosen a sport that worked with your strengths because you obviously are strong and an athlete. Did you ever feel that perhaps, a tennis, golf, soccer might have been the chosen sport you should have done? Or did you always feel triathlon was your passion? Or were you passionate about those? Tell me about that kind of trying to decide what sport to do.
Yeah, it's funny. Unfortunately, it doesn't really show up in the sport of triathlon. I got to have fast transitions, and actually that had saved me quite a few times. I think my first World Cup I won in Gamagori. I came out of the water behind a couple of girls, and it was like we were the front swim pack, and I made the group with Loretta and Nikki, and one of the girls I came out of the water behind, she didn't make the group. And then it gave me the opportunity to win the race. Granted, everything else fell into place.
But still,
so it did help. It definitely did help on a few occasions that I was like, wow, okay. So that little bit of that isn't a huge factor in our sport, but definitely played a role with the type of the triathlon that I did with World Cup, right? Where transitions are a factor. If you're doing non-drafting, they do count still, but not as much because you're not missing a pack necessarily. And so, I think that having, I did play golf. I did play tennis growing up. I almost feel like it's one of those things where what you're around more, maybe if my next door neighbor was playing tennis or one of my good friends or if my parents were tennis players, I would have probably stuck with, I could imagine playing tennis. I don't think I would have done golf. I think golf I needed more movement, I think. Golf is definitely, it's probably, I have no idea, but I would say like 90% in your mind. And then you've got, and then you've got the swing and the strength. There's tremendous strength and agility with golf as well. But, I think that tennis or, something that had a little more life to it would have been probably up my alley. But for some reason it must have been, family influence or something, because I didn't get hooked on it. And, or maybe the aerobic side is something that I needed too, and so it would have, I look back at that and kind of go, and then I'm like, no, I've had a pretty amazing life. Found you. I found you. I found the sport. It's given me a lot of discipline.
We would have found each other had you been number one tennis player in the world. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I would have tracked you down.
All right. Well, that's good to know. I know. I think that, So, I can't say that I've ever really loved triathlon. I have never really loved swimming, biking, and running, but it's the place where I found that I could do what I love, and I love to compete. I love racing. I love racing so much that, for probably the longest period of time that I was uninjured, I couldn't train with anyone else because it kept me from getting injured. I raced every single day I was out there. When we were in squads, I had to, race to get better.
On that, we could never swim together in a squad next to each other. The coaches would try and line us up. We'd be like, no, I'm not taking that home.
Yeah,
I'm not taking
exactly.
the competitiveness with my wife in the swim pool, because we were similar.
Yeah,
we were a similar pace in the pool.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think maybe I got you on the 50. I think you're likely to. We're very close on the 100, but by the 200, you've got me. In the 400, for sure, you've got me in the pool.
Well, I catch on the flip turns.
Yeah, we're just your efficiency of movement. Biomechanically, you're very sound, and I'm just a thrasher.
Yeah.
In the open water, I may be a little bit more comfortable, but it was. But with all of that, I think I'm like, I don't want to have to. No. And there was no. When I went to swimming squad, when we did happen to end up next to each other and we're doing 200s or something. Oh, you were the worst person to swim next to, because it was, I would tend to go all out in whatever I did. I go all out, and then the goal is hang on, right? That was my mindset always. And so when it comes to a 200-meter swim in the pool, it's like, all right, let's open up the gap on whoever I'm racing. And 90% of the time, anybody I raced against in the pool, side by side, if I opened the gap, I kind of could then measure them and monitor them, and they wouldn't come back. You were the worst person in the world, because you always came back and you always found another gear in that final 50 and swam over the top of me. And it was like, if anybody ever made me suffer in a swim workout, it was you. And that's where it was great to have you as a training partner all those years. But at the same time, I didn't want to line up next to you when it came to racing.
I do have a confession to make. If I knew you were trying to beat me, I would definitely hold you on the line.
Oh, man.
I could feel, fortunately with swimming, like you said, having the technique and having swum for so long, I really refined my technique in college and had the ability to bring that to, triathlon, where people, were probably much better bikers and runners than I was. So I could use that, and having solid technique gave me the opportunity to not quite get quite as tired in situations like that. But
I got a funny story I got to share on that one. When we were swimming in Noosa at the aquatic center there, and one day, and I think we were just doing an easy 2 kilometer sort of side by side, or maybe it was 3 kilometers, whatever it was. It was just a turn the arms over aerobic swim, and we sort of swim side by side, and we kind of just set the pace together. And anyway, we finish and we get to the edge of the pool there, and we're kind of chatting, and this family come over, and there's 2 young girls, probably about 8 and 10, and their parents, and the dad comes over and goes, "Oh, we've been watching you swim," talking directly with you, "for the last 10 to 15 minutes, and oh, what a magnificent stroke, and we've had our daughters watching your stroke and learning the technique." Then he looks over at me and goes, "Not you so much." I was like, what?
That wasn't so nice.
Well, it wasn't even. There's no need to say something like that, is there?
No. That was unnecessary. We could just give compliments. We don't have to bring other people down to make you look good.
That was funny. But that is a description of how the two of us swim. We've been called the rhino and the swan. Yeah. Although rhinos do swim pretty well. But,
all underwater, right? It's like it's like don't look at my technique. It's heart and lungs on the inside.
Yeah. So then we talked about you got up to 98 and you became a professional. Now I think looking at it, was it 98 you came second at the Hyvee World Cup?
Yeah.
That was a real burst onto the scene. When did you kind of go, I've got I'm passionate. I love endurance sport. I've now got my pro license. At what point was I've got some talent and strengths in this area. Maybe this is a career opportunity?
Never. No. I always felt like I'm on the back foot in our sport. No. I think that, that was definitely fantastic to come second in Noosa. And I do remember that fondly. And, I feel like the swimming for sure kind of put me in the race, and, having that bike group in the front with Loretta and Nikki Hackett, because those two, and Barb Lindquist, and then Sheila as well. I can't remember if she came in a little bit later, or maybe she was in before me. But anyway, having that group. But I was always on the rivet with those guys hanging on. I mean, honestly, through the swim and then on the bike, it was like, I mean, I remember one time with Loretta, and she would just be abusing me on the bike and going, and just take a pull. But I mean, that's one of the things that happens in the group. Like that's like an unspoken rule that you can abuse the crap out of each other because you guys all have that goal of, staying away from anybody who's chasing you. And so, coming off the course, it was as if nothing happened, right? You're just trying to inspire each other. And, and I think, but I do remember being in that, in the bike group with those guys. And it was, I mean, you were doing all out sprints just to come around and take your turn. Well, that's what I felt like. I don't know how they felt. I mean, maybe they were far more trained up for this sort of situation, but that's where I was at the time when I was racing with those girls. So I never felt in control or, I'm setting the pace here. I mean, maybe I'd get fleeting moments of it, at certain races, but so I would say I've always felt like a guest at this.
That is hilarious.
In this sport.
No, I didn't have any talent or strength. No. I just hung on for dear life for 20 years.
I know. Talk about having anxiety every day. Yeah. And I think, it could be a product of, maybe not doing quite the right training or, or just who I am, just kind of never giving myself that credit or never having that confidence. I mean, I definitely felt more confident when I had solid sessions behind me. And I knew kind of going into races if I would do well. Like, it's really weird, but going into when I won Gamagori, I think, was that 2000? I woke up and I was like, coming into the race, I remember kind of going, I think I'm going to have a good day here. So it was almost like I couldn't put my finger on it. I know I'd done some good training, but there was times where I kind of felt, yeah, this is going to work out well for me today. I didn't know I was going to win or anything, but it was like when it did happen, and there were important parts of that day that had to happen for me to, for it to fall into place. And like I said, like making the bike pack, in transition and coming out first. And that was like the first step. And then, the second step.
I think a lot of it is that you're fairly demanding on yourself, and that we had it described to us once from a neighbor of ours that said sort of, and this is a generalization, but basically women tend to want to be perfectionists. It's about being perfect and getting a good score, whereas a man is just trying to be better than another man. And that was definitely you and I think at times throughout our career, I could be over the moon at winning a race and only 5 or 6 guys be there. And I didn't care. It didn't matter. I won, and that's all that mattered.
Yep.
You would come home from winning a race and be like, yeah, but so-and-so wasn't there and so-and-so wasn't there. And this wasn't so good and this wasn't so good. Whereas I was like completely like, so long as I'm beating the other guys, I didn't tend to care as much. And that was a definite difference in our personalities and how we approached the sport. Do you think that that kind of perfectionism was
a limiter
contributed to that?
Yeah. For sure. I know. And it's easier to see all of that when you've taken, I've been out for a while now, and it's kind of like you look back and you go, oh man, why didn't you just give yourself a break? And just, you could have probably fine-tuned things there. But, I feel like too, we've definitely, once we got together, because you and I were very good at sounding off of each other and talking about the sport all day long, every day, which that took me a little bit to get used to. I'm like, I like the sport. This is good, but I don't want to do this all day long, and maybe that's a female thing too. Like, it's like we talk about one of the sessions we did in Noosa, and you and Mark Jenkins, swimming in, and Helen and I swimming in, and we get on the beach and you guys are like stroking each other. Yo, man, you were so good there. You were so good there. Yeah, good job, man. Blah, blah, blah.
Get out. That never
you and Jinxie and Helen and I just look at you two.
This is going to be deleted, by the way, out of this episode.
And Helen and I are like, get on with it. The swim's over. Everybody's made it back at the same time. No. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it would have been more advantageous to kind of, give yourself a break and, take some credit there. But I do think we were a lot of times aware of our surroundings. Now, whether or not I processed it properly, I don't know. But, like you said, you're working with the information you have at the time and you're doing the best you can. And I do think I had limiters on me for certain things, but I don't know that it would have changed it, my career or anything. I do think that having a passion for sport, but not necessarily our sport, could have been a limiter too. I don't know. I don't have that base level of strength. Some girls come in and they dominate in their first year of sport in our sport. I don't think I was injured. I think I had a strong, what was it, like 4 years together that I wasn't injured in my, how many years? 20 years of racing. Yeah. And that was, I think, it wasn't even through the Olympics. I mean, 2008, I went into that injured. So yeah, it was kind of a short period of time that I wasn't dealing with that level of that stress level, so much easier when you're not injured to relax and just roll with things. And so I think in that respect, it was, I don't know, you kind of look back and it's easier to say that 2020, hindsight's 2020, but, yeah, I think I don't get me wrong. I am so grateful for the career I've had, and I'm very proud of my accomplishments and all the opportunities I've had and taking advantage of the ones that came to me for the most part. So,
well, when I look at your career, you have that second in Noosa in 98. And then it's kind of goes a little bit all over the place again. Sort of in 99, it's kind of, some random results everywhere. And, but then sort of right up, you get fourth at the Hawaii World Cup in 99. So you're still getting some feedback along the way. The 2000 Olympics, was that on your radar at all?
Yeah. I mean, we went to trials for that. I didn't, in 98, Pete Colson invited me down to train with Michellie Jones. And I thought, wow, that's unreal. Like
Michellie's basically one of the greatest of all time.
Absolutely.
She had won several world championships by that stage. And go on.
Yeah, exactly. So she had actually had she already done her 7? I think she had 7 or 8 world championship podiums, 2 world titles. And yeah, so I went down and it was funny because I was in a point at the turning point there that I needed a change. I was still heavier than I wanted to be. I didn't have good focus on, where I was going and things like that. And so it enabled me to kind of break up the routines and the habits that I was in. And so I went down and lived down there with Michellie from 98 to 99. And that's where I found out about the Formula One series that was going on. I raced that year. And that's when I lived with Siri and Michellie. We were all down there. I guess Siri had come and stayed with Michellie as well. I don't know how that all happened, but Siri and I were sharing a room in Michellie's house. And so that was the start of like a bit of a change for me. But that's where I think I got injured in 99. And so I was focused on trying to make 2000, but I think I was injured going in. And then I think I made worlds that year, but I can't even remember now. And
that's okay.
Honestly, but I didn't do very well. I was injured going into the race, and it wasn't a great race for me. And so, I think it wasn't until, I think that same, was it 2000?
2001 was when you won Gamagori. And
but I'd gotten invited to come up to Victoria in 2000, right? So that's where we end. So we met in 98, briefly down on the World Cup scene or in the Formula One scene. And then you and I didn't see each other again until 2000. And so that's when I went to Corner Brook, and Paul Regensburg invited me to come to Victoria before the 2000 Olympics. I think I'd already missed my team, so I was just racing throughout that season, and so he had seen how well you were doing with Simon training, that they invited me out to try and help Sharon Donnelly. But the funny thing was I was injured, and so I was like, sure, I'll come. And I came out there, and that's where we ended up connecting. And then, yeah, I think from there I got connected with those guys, with Lance Watson. And, I wasn't really looking for a coach. I was just kind of looking for a squad, because I'd been through a couple of coaches and no one was really quite fitting for me. And I'd learned a lot through swimming. So it was kind of, starting the process of just kind of knowing what I needed. And so then I went, and Lance Watson said, no, you're not going to come into our squad. I'll coach without me coaching you and stuff. And I said, okay, well, that's fine. I mean, there's always new things you can learn from everybody. And the squad was a fantastic squad. I mean, with yourself and Simon, and I mean, we had a lot of athletes come through there. Brent McMahon was in there at the time too. And so I think, we went down to Australia because I wanted to have a squad down there as well. And you guys were headed down there in 2000, and that's when, you and I came together. Yeah. And so I think that we started, that started me on a better path of consistency. I think having the squad, and then having, Lance was kind of setting the program, but I think at that time we were kind of manipulating it a little bit just to work in with you and I, to work together as well.
Just a quick mini break before we get back to the show. I just want to remind you guys to go check out athleticgreens.com/Greg. Sign up and get your free 20 daily travel packets with your first order of $79 added value. That's athleticgreens.com/Greg. Well, when I look at your resume, and I've got it in front of me, so that makes it a bit easier. But basically, it's 2000, 2001, you start to get a little bit of consistency. But really, it was that sort of 2002, and then very much 2003. You're basically not out of the top 5 almost for 9 years. Yeah. You have the occasional 9th. And the wins start coming as well when we start sort of looking at that 03 stage, St. Petersburg in Florida World Cup, Tongyong World Cup, San Francisco, Boston. The wins start coming. There seems to be this consistency that maybe being in that sort of a squad in that training environment, or maybe it was just me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
but
no, well, honestly,
it does take sort of 12 months, 24 months, but then you can really see there's this real okay, if I'm going to do the sport, let's do it really well. Yeah. And I think in 03, I think Siri Lindley, who I just had on the show, I think she'd retired. That's right. She won 01-02 World Series, and then 03 was a young Emma Snowsill came along and won the World Championships that year, and I think just pipped you to win the World Cup Series by a couple of points in 2003.
My resume would be amazing had she not existed. No.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, everybody could probably say that, right?
No, I don't know. There are these people that come along and they do ruin it for you.
Yeah, and then I have to have Fernandez come in that little cycle.
Yeah, Vanessa Fernandez from Portugal, and Emma Snowsill, who eventually won the 2008 Olympic gold.
No, you're right, though. There was a turning point. And honestly, going back between 98 and 2000, when after I went down to Australia and had done the series, I was going to come back and do, one more Formula One series, and then I was going to probably retire, because the time I'd been in it was really short. But I was like, you know what? I've met a lot of great people. I kind of want to start my life who I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, because the sport isn't, fulfilling enough for me. It's kind of weird, but in the end. And so I think that I was like, okay, well, I met a lot of nice guys, but nobody really that I was interested in. You and AJ were the two guys that I kind of met that I was like, those guys are kind of fun, but you guys had girlfriends and whatever, and we didn't even have the same friends when I was down there. So I didn't even really know you guys at all. And so then when, we met again in 2000, and I was like, it was absolute immediately. We hit it off. And so I think I was like, great. Now I've met somebody that I really enjoy being with, and wow, he's in the sport too. It's perfect. I mean, I'd always said I'm never going to, probably date a triathlete. No way, and then you come along and then you hit it off and you're like, actually,
there was no way you could refuse it.
No way. So anyway, yeah. So I basically was like, oh, this is great. And now I found the person I can have all these experiences with racing. Cause I had done a lot of racing and I'd gone with girlfriends and stuff, and it was a lot of fun, but I wanted to keep those experiences ones that I could remember with someone forever, And so, yeah, it just worked out. And I think that's what kind of spawned me into staying in the sport a lot longer. And, once we got together, it was like, okay, now let's join forces here and maximize ourselves. I mean, when I met you, I couldn't believe how much, I'd known about Brett Sutton's training and everything, and how much training you'd done, and the performances. You'd had a lot of good performances, but the potential that you had, I mean, having come from swimming and seeing some of the highest levels of sport in a single sport, it's like you kind of have a good idea of what it takes to do sports. And, when in having three sports, you don't have to be quite as good in any one sport, but you do have to do all three well. And yeah, when I met you, I was like, wow, this guy's he's got all this volume, all this training in him. And all he needs to do is just not talk himself out of performing on the day. That's it. I'm like, what are you doing? You've got everything you need to perform. Just stop thinking,
Yeah.
And so
that's come up a bit in this show. I talk about my confidence and how you've been my pillar of strength to be more confident in my ability. And I've said often on this show, if I could go back to my 17-year-old self, I'd slap myself in the face and just say, be more confident.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, go on.
No, exactly. And I think there was, to some degree, kind of trying to help you, and then you were helping me because you were fulfilling like the outside, encompassing my whole life, not just my life in sport, which that was another thing that we both did together as well. So that helped there too. And so maybe giving back to you a little bit and helping you find your optimal self, because even all the imagery and everything you do before a race, you've even got all that. It was just kind of like just distracting you long enough to get the gun to go off, because you knew what to do once the gun went off, but it was like you'd talk yourself out of it, but right before the gun went off. And so I think that was the key for us to really go on and have longer careers than most, and stronger in the sense of maximizing ourselves, is coming together and kind of complementing each other. Not like you have nice hair, like I'll pick up the pieces that you're dropping and you pick up my pieces that I'm dropping. And I think that was the key to us. Now we found each other in the squad in Victoria and in an environment up there. But like you said, our performances really started to excel come 2003. And that's when we started to take more control of our program. And, I felt, honestly, we were in the squad and it was helpful, but I was the one managing your emotions every single day when you came home. So, Lance can take some credit for that, but I'm sorry, I can't give it to him. I was
Lance Watson, by the way, was the coach we were working with in Victoria.
And he's fantastic, and he did a great job. He had you and Simon to deal with, and that was a handful. Two very passionate guys about wanting to be the best in the world. And boy, some of the slack he took from you too. So, but anyway, my point is in saying that is that, yeah, I think that having the two of us constantly seeing each other and managing each other, and it was a lot to
Yeah.
work through, but it also was a benefit. So what could have been a bit of a limiter for certain areas for me or for you, I think we made up in other areas and ended up, we were good athletes before, but we fine-tuned and became better athletes together. And I think that was the key to our longevity in the sport for sure, but also that consistency together.
I remember, so I'm going to you can fill in the blanks a little bit, but, and I do want to go over this event in a moment, but in 2003, you came second at the World Championships in Queenstown, New Zealand. You then, 6 months later, came third at the World Championships in Madeira, Portugal. And so you go on second and then third, but you were left off the US Olympic team for the 2004 Olympic Games, which we can talk about that little bit of a journey. But I remember, at the end of 2004, I'd been to the Olympics and come forth, and you were just amazing support for me there. But we got married at the end of 2004, and we had an amazing sort of, call it honeymoon. We bought a world ticket, and we had a good time. And I remember towards the end of our honeymoon, just being at my folks' place in Sydney, and we were lying in bed. It was probably like 9 or 10 a.m. And you turned to me and you said, Greg, this is really nice. I could get used to this. And I kind of agreed and said, it was nice. And being that we'd been getting up, for 20 years of our life at 4 a.m. every single morning, 5 a.m. morning to train. And this was the first time we'd ever not done that. We'd both been athletes our entire life. My point in bringing you that story, that long-winded story, was to say, I remember us both sort of chatting and going, do we want to retire? And we almost kind of did for a few minutes there. I was like, yeah, this is really nice. And then kind of having a conversation which said, let's be intentional about the rest of our career and our lives to really optimize everything we can control. And I guess the point of that story is, when did you start going all in and being more intentional? There was that moment where I think we really took it to another level, but what was it like before that? And in that question, I also want to hear about that whole 2004 Olympic experience.
Yeah, exactly. I think, well, definitely. I think that was the turning point. I think you and I had come together. We had some good performances together. And then I think we were kind of like, okay, I hadn't made an Olympic team yet. I really felt like that was important in our sport, because that was kind of the highest level you could get to at the time, to some degree, is making the Olympic team. It's not like, it's like making Kona for long course. And, I think it was already somewhat evolving, like I mentioned, we were in Lance Watson's squad, but you and I were really doing a lot of the management of our career at that point, and training every single day, training of our, manipulating it to what we felt like we needed, which I think you should evolve to as an athlete. I mean, you are your best coach, and you have these coaches to kind of explore your limitations. And so I think definitely that was our turning point, in the sense of saying, okay, well, are we going to go get another job, or are we going to commit to just you and I taking on this program together? Because I felt like I was already doing most of the work, in the sense of like, the management of emotions and things like that. And so I was like, I don't know what else we need to really be doing. We're already doing it. Like you would set a program, for the training. You were very good at laying out, like, that's when we started saying, okay, we're looking at 4-year blocks. We were in the Olympic cycles, right? So we're going to take 4-year blocks. And so you were very good. You started doing a lot more study and everything, even though I do think you knew what you needed to know enough. We were already doing a 2-hour long run. That became so trendy come, 2000 and I don't know, maybe it was 4 or 6. I mean, between 2000 and 2004, we were already doing that. And then we were already in an altitude tent in 2003, 2004. So, we were always trying to find the newest things and being proactive on, okay, what can we do to get ahead of the curve with these amazing athletes that were racing. And so I think, I remember saying, Greg, let's just do it ourselves. Let's coach ourselves. And I think you hadn't really thought about it because you were kind of bouncing things off Lance, and then you had stuff already. I mean, you were basically bringing your program to Lance, and then he would say, yeah, Greg, I like what you're doing there. Let's explore that. So,
I still use Lance very much. And that started in 2000 as a consultant. It was always nice. I'd grown to the point I'd had a couple of coaches, and I needed to have just a sounding board. And then it was an intent that we both said, right, let's go on our own and coach ourselves with no consultant, and it was just each other. And sort of from that.
And don't get me wrong, in that period of time, we kind of thought, oh, should we have someone to consult with? Take some pressure off of you having to think about me, and taking some pressure off me to having to think about you. But then you have to, manage them into the mold when you don't need them. It's kind of like you still have to maintenance that. Whereas, if you could just grab them when you needed them, and generally that was only at our peak training, when you're in that high threshold period of time. It's like a 6-week block where you're really super tired. The training's really hard. And, it's harder to manage your emotions and all of that. And you just wanted someone to say, okay, that's enough out of you for today. And that's enough. But we had to kind of take that on and try to feel and look at the other person and, help them out if we could. And we did do all that, but I do think that could have been a little bit of a limiter to us, but at the same time, it would have been harder to kind of hold on to having somebody involved every day. But I think that.
Well, tell me a bit about the 03, 04 world champs and Olympic experience.
Yeah. I mean, that was pretty disappointing. I think, again, I've come in and out.
Well, the 02 was a career highlight. So 03, was a career highlight.
Oh, absolutely. Well, what's really funny about, the 03 podium at World Championship, and in
Queenstown.
Yeah, Queenstown.
Yeah.
My career feels like it's fading away. I can't remember anything.
Having the second baby, you're doing very well for somebody.
I'm still breastfeeding. I don't have half the capacity. Yeah. No, Queenstown was amazing. I think, again, I came into that one, and I came in with a bit of an injury, but I had been in the altitude tent for, that summer, and I had a bit of, I think they were doing construction around our house. And so we had to go a longer way around. So I actually was getting in a lot more bike miles at that time, which was kind of funny because I think it overall made me a little bit stronger for that race. And so that race kind of panned out where it was Barb and Michellie and myself in the last, probably about the last 5K, the three of us were together. Now, Emma Snowsill was in the race, but we don't remember that because she was so far up the road that we were all chasing her. I think she had about a minute lead on us. And so we were really just vying for the podium at that point. The story is kind of fun because it was, when I was a junior in Manchester, I saw Michellie Jones and Karen Smyers have a sprint finish for the win. And it's funny because I've since talked to Karen Smyers about that situation, and Michellie beat her. And I just thought, oh my gosh, how cool would that be to win a race on a sprint finish? In high school, I had a bit of a sprint finish in the mile and the 2 mile, as long as the girls didn't go out too hard, because I didn't have the threshold they had, but I did have a finishing kick. And if they kept it a bit more aerobic, I could come over the top of them. And I did win a few state titles that way. And so when I experienced that in Manchester, I thought, oh my God, that's so amazing. So 10 years later, from 93 to 2003, I'm in a situation where I'm got 2 other girls, and we're vying for the podium for second and third. And, we Queenstown was a little bit hilly on one side, and then, kind of wrapped around, and then it was a long grass finish. And Michellie and I had kind of pulled away from Barb with probably about a half a mile to go or so. And I started thinking, and I was like, oh my gosh, is this going to happen? Am I going to be in a sprint finish for the podium? Ideally for the win, but Emma has taken that away from us already. So whatever, we'll console for second and third. And I just thought, holy crap, 10 years later. And then who am I in a sprint finish with but Michellie Jones? Are you kidding? Like, I couldn't believe, like, never mind that it was a world championship. It was just like the fact that it was going to happen in a race, let alone, and then, being a world championship. And the first real world championship that I was in, I think I didn't go to 01 in 2000. It was terrible. And so I was just getting so excited. And so we're coming around, and we probably have about a quarter mile to go. And then the tension's building up, and Michellie and I are kind of staying neck and neck in this period, and we come around, and we have about, I don't know how long the long grass stretch was, but let's say it was about 200 meters when Lance Watson was on the corner. And, sometimes we had practiced, like in training, like, go, or whatever. I can't remember the exact words, for a sprint finish or to put in a surge or something like that. And I came around the corner, and Lance said whatever it was. And I don't even know if he meant to do it. And I started my sprint, and it was almost like it just happened. And I sprinted, and Michellie was right next to me, and I put a little gap into her. And, we still had the whole stretch, and it was kind of windy. And I thought, oh my God, Laura, what have you done? I was like, that is not going to be enough. You are screwed. And so I was like, okay, she's coming. She's going to come back over the top of you, and she's going to hit you so hard. You just have to just be ready. And she did. And she came over the top of me, and she put in a little gap. And I was like, oh no. I was like, you cannot lose this opportunity. 10 years you've been waiting for this. And so it was a bit of a headwind, like I mentioned, and I tucked in behind her, and I slowly pulled back the gap. And I thought, okay, I've just gotten just on her heels. And I said, okay, you got to go now. And right when I said go, she looked, I don't know if it was left or right, and I went the other. So she looked left, and I went right. And it gave me that one little millisecond for her to not respond immediately. And I just took off, and it opened up enough of a gap that I could get to the finish line before she could cover it, or I don't know if she could or not, but I wasn't going to sit around and wait. And so I came across the line, and honestly, you would have thought I won the world championship. I was so excited. I threw my hands in the air and everything. And, Emma's sitting there going, where have you guys been? And so I was just so excited. And Michellie came through, and she actually congratulated me, which I thought was pretty bold because, she was such a champion herself. And I thought, wow, she really is a champion to, because, right when you finish, it's kind of hard to be like, oh yeah, good job. You just beat me kind of thing. And so she did. And I really appreciated that. And we'd had a bit of history too, in the sense of, living with her and stuff like that. And so, so that was such a special day for me. Even, coming second, it was almost like a gold. And yeah, it really, I can almost bring back the feelings now of.
I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah.
I love those stories that stick with you like that. And yeah, Michellie Jones, you actually did outrun her. She must have slowed down because you beat her by 2 seconds. And then Barb was another 3 seconds. I think
she's like, I'm not going to catch her. So she just let me.
Actually, Barb hang in there. She was only 5 seconds behind you at the end as well.
Yeah,
so it really was a close finish. So, but like you said, Emma Snowsill, your menace from basically that day for the next 7 years. She did win her first world title, and she was a minute 20 up the road.
Yeah.
I do remember that when you throwing your hands, and I think there's a great photo around somewhere of you throwing your hands in the air, and that was huge. But then you go on, and now you're thinking, okay, I've just finished second in the World Series, just behind Emma Snowsill.
Yeah.
Then I think it was Emma that won. I can't remember who won that.
Yeah, she did.
Pardon me.
She did. She did.
And then, so now you're thinking pretty good about the Olympics must be on the radar. And so the US Olympic trials, what were they? Had anybody been selected yet?
Well, no, not yet. No, not yet. Because we had Madeira World Champs in 2004, and that was, I believe, our first qualifier. Wait, I feel like there was another one. Somehow we had. Well, anyway, Madeira for sure was one. Top American goes. Okay, now Sheila Taormina's come on the scene, and she's been quite strong. She's a phenomenal swim biker and a very solid runner, and very solid for the first swim bike pack group. Like that's basically they would get 2 minutes on the pack behind. So you didn't have to be the best runner in the sport to be able to win the world champs or win World Cups at that time. And so, honestly, going into Madeira, I wasn't in great shape. I might have had an injury. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure because I wasn't.
Because you always did.
I always did, exactly. I had a lot of plantar fascia issues. Now I know exactly why. But anyway, and so we coming into that race, I was in good shape, but I wasn't sure, how I was going to perform. And I thought, you know what? I think Sheila's been doing really well. It's, not surprising if she does well here, and, Barb, of course. And I thought, oh my God, I think I'm going to have to win world championships to make the U.S. Olympic team. And that was it. It was real.
Yeah. Sheila went off to win.
Went off to win. I had a great race with those girls, and she went off to win. And I got third. Loretta Harrop was between us. And I thought, holy crap, not only did you have to win a world champs, but I still got third at world champs. And I'm not going to make our Olympic team. It wasn't 2 Americans. It was just one made that from that first race. And I thought.
Because the second race then was in Bellingham, Washington.
Yeah, and that's where they picked 2, right?
A month later. And Bellingham, what was interesting about that, it was basically, I think 10 or 12 people started. Oh, here it is. 13 people started. And it was basically a rinky-dink race in the back of nowhere where it ended up having no relevance to how an ITU race worked, a World Cup, Olympic style race worked. And it became a US non-drafting race, really. I mean, drafting was allowed, but because it was so spread out that I don't know about you, but anyway, and then they used, so it was a handful of American girls raced, and actually Liz Blatchford from the UK won it, but Barb Lindquist was second across the line, and then Susan Williams was third. And you were fifth, right behind Sam McGlone, but I think you'd switched off once the podium.
Yeah, definitely. I know, so I couldn't believe it. I know.
That was fairly devastating, and I remember then I had you as my training partner to go through to 04 Olympics. But I want to talk a little bit about, rather than dwell on that experience.
Sure. No, we're over that. We're over that.
I think, when I look at you, when we decided to really take ownership and after that disappointment, and thanks for sharing that, when we look at your sort of 05, 06, 07 year of what was it that when we talk about taking ownership, being more intent, what do you think those things were that we did a little bit better, that made the difference? Really, from then on, you were very rarely out of the top 5 ever again. You went on to have an incredible 07 year, make the 08 Olympic Games, make the 2012 Olympic Games. It really was from that moment on. Tell us a little bit about, when we talk about being more intent, what is that?
Yeah, I think it's figuring out what your goal is. And ideally, you've picked the right one. If your results aren't showing up, you've probably picked the wrong goal. Your process could be part of that too. But from what my experience is, for example, so anyway, I think with intent for you and I, it was putting the sport first. Not that we hadn't already been doing that, but I think it was more about both of us purely committed to saying, okay, what does it take to maximize ourselves here. Not just like, oh, let's do this race because it's fun. Or, I mean, I think we've always had a level of business perspective of it, of, okay, I'm going to train just as hard for a $1,000 win as I'm going to train for a $10,000 win. So let's focus on the $10,000 win, and I think that's where we started looking at taking over our control of our programs, and you doing what you do best, I doing what I do what I do best, and our strengths and weaknesses, recognizing what those were. And I think saying, okay, what do we need to do to perform? Okay, we go to bed at 8, we get up at 5, we have our consistent routine of sleep, then our diet, everything, we do the best diet we can for, with the knowledge we have at the time. Nutrition has always kind of been a passion for me, but, I only knew so much. And so now looking back, there was things that we weren't doing and that we could have been doing, and probably a bit of a limiter for us, but, and that's where we hope to help others understand all of that, how important that is. But, I think that just waking up going, this is our number one goal, is to be the best that we can be, and hopefully the best in the sport, and laying out that process. And, it's funny, all these things that people talk about nowadays of like, oh yeah, your sleep and your nutrition and these sorts of things. I'm like, we talk about it together, and I'm kind of, great, we were doing that, but we weren't great at telling other people, or we couldn't explain why it was the case. And that was because we didn't have the language of what, you just felt it. You knew what you were doing was right. And you were staying consistent with the things that were progressing you. And so
I think there was one compliment that we got. It was, don't call the Bennetts after 8. It was like, and what I mean by that, it was, we were living so intently that we were in bed by 8 every night. We stopped training, and any form of training, body work, massages, everything was done by 5. We were very much okay, and we were eating dinner always by at least 5:30, and then in bed by 8. And like you said, up at 4:30 or 5 the next morning, and that was relentless for 10 years.
Yeah,
it wasn't letting up. In terms of sleep, we prioritized it as high as anything. It's easy for people to prioritize their training and their nutrition, but we really prioritized our downtime, our recovery, our sleep, and then the body work side of things. I think our team that we built around us with, Dr. Alex Keith here in Florida, Ted Forkham, Dr. Ted Forkham, chiropractor, also in Portland, Oregon, Nicholas Studholm in Boulder, and then obviously Marcus Mejias, our massage therapist, who's been mentioned on this show probably more than anybody else, but he basically was almost live-in. He was at our house every afternoon for most of our careers. It really was that kind of, what can we control and do better? Mm-hmm. And you kind of touched on it before, the business mindset that we brought with it was, okay, 15% of our income will go towards travel. Now, I became an av geek and a points collector and loved trying to figure out how to do it cheaper. So we never remotely came close to using 15% of our income, but we tried to make sure we traveled right. It was all this, you got to pay to play. Well, and then it was 15% of our income will go to body work and our team. Mm-hmm. So whatever it costs, if I have to fly to Florida to see Alex to work on him, do it. It was like that kind of a mindset shift. Was, let's go all in here and reinvest in ourselves when we can.
Absolutely. I mean, even to the point of, strategically thinking, okay, well, I think there was a point where we said, we do all this work and then you travel economy to some of these big races where you are vying for the podium, where you can make, good money. We have to start traveling business. Where you get the best possible travel you can. And that's scary. I mean, it was so close to showing up and you can't perform, your bike problems or anything. That risk that we took to do that was crazy. But at the same time, we felt like we deserved to take that risk, and it was worth it, worth trying. And I think that that's when shoot, I lost my train of thought on that.
No, that's okay. No, let me interrupt there because I think.
No, I remember now. So one of the years I had so many races around the world that we had 3 around the world tickets, business class tickets, 3 around the world business class tickets going at one time. So we started, one off. I picked up that flight. I started another one off, and then I picked up. So my point in saying that is that we got, like, let's say if it was a $3,000 ticket to fly business back then, we got like 3 or 4 races off of it, and I found that was, that's kind of the stuff that you do. That's intent. Let's think this through. We've got to make this work,
See, for me, the travel part was always the exciting. It was a part finding the deals, part finding not only the best business class seat, but making sure that when you get that airline that they're going to get the right plane, that we'll have the right seat, then having the right credit cards that get you the points, and all of that. For me, I just geeked out on it. So it became a real side passion that I really enjoyed. I'll never forget that year when I found these really good deals, these round the world business class seats. And I remember that you were going, because you were racing French Grand Prix, you were racing it World Cup. So anyway, that was really, really fun. And I just want to sort of keep moving on here. And I want you to tell me about the 2007 year, because that was a very special year. Yeah,
2007 definitely was. I mean, I think going into, we had made a plan in our 4-year block from 2004 to 2008. I'm not sure when Hyvee was actually announced as a big prize money race, but the moment it was our number 1 race for that season. And so, we had already had world championships. Those races were always my priority as well. I thought if you can race the best in the world and try to be at your best, there is no other standard. All these World Cups, you never know who's there. Like we talked about before, the perfection, which is unachievable. And so that was the way I could control that part. And so World Champs was always a priority. And then also we had our Olympic trials in 2007 as well. So that block was pretty intense. And so coming into 2007, Hyvee was definitely on the cards. Hamburg, I did not want to miss that world championship. And then we still had my Olympic trials 2 weeks after Hamburg in China, in Beijing. And so I thought, geez, is this risky to fly, all the way to Hamburg? Because we were in Boulder at the time. So I would fly all the way to Boulder, come all the way back, and then go all the way to China in that 2-week span. And so basically going into that year, those were all our goals. And of course, trying to do well at all the World Cups. So to kick it off, it was amazing that everything we had planned that year came to fruition. And I don't know if that was like a combination of our whole life's work coming together, or just that level, like you mentioned, switching over the intent and taking full control of our programs. It was just you and I. We made all the decisions. We only had 2 home bases. We would go to Noosa and we would come back to Boulder, in that period of time. I think Victoria was in 4 and 5, but then 6, 7, 8, we were, in Boulder and going. So I think having that consistency and everything, but yeah, I think, going into Hyvee, I mean, that was such a special win. I don't need to talk about it for, as long as I did the last World Champs, but just to highlight a few things that, the U.S. girls worked very well. Sarah McClarty was an amazing swimmer we had working in that front group, in this time period, our little blocks of who was in each group. And, she did a great job of being a part of, she could swim so much faster than us. She could drop us, but she realized that being in the group was very advantageous. And she did a phenomenal job in the swim that day to kind of draw the girls out. And it was funny when we got in our bike group, the players at the time, we had one of the girls that's usually in the second pack that was in our first pack that kind of started to unfold in a day that I thought, oh my gosh, this could be another good day for me, and Jessica Harrison was in our pack, and we had the usual suspects otherwise: Sarah McClarty, Sarah Haskins, And I'm going to forget some people, maybe Helen Jenkins and
Annabelle
Luxford and Caitlin, Kirsten Sweetland. So there was about 6 or 7 of us. And I thought, oh my gosh, Jessica Harrison's in our group. This is fantastic. No one else is going to really drive that second pack.
Well, you also didn't have Emma Snowsill missed you guys coming out of the water by about 15 seconds. Exactly. It was a short, very short little window, but it was your menace.
Yes, exactly. Which honestly was a key for my success that day, because she was a better runner for sure. And if
you forgot to mention that it was one of the hottest days on record in Des Moines. What I love about this, everybody, is everybody talks about how hot Des Moines was in the middle, in June, and you tell the story completely differently, don't you? You're like, oh, wasn't that hot?
I know. I don't remember the hot. I do remember the dry, because I went through 2 1-liter bottles of fluid that day, and it wasn't even close to enough. My mouth was cottony when we were coming in off the bike. But yeah, so anyway, so we came in off the bike, and so like miracle number 1 was Jessica Harrison was in our group. No, miracle number 1 was Emma didn't make our pack. Miracle number 2, Jessica Harrison's in our pack. Miracle number 3 is I came off the bike and again had a fantastic transition. But sometimes with that anxiety in the transition of having a quick one is I go out too fast in the run, and then I get a cramp or whatever. So that day I was like, okay, don't go out too fast. And it was immediately a downhill, so it was kind of hard not to go out fast. So I kind of calmed down and relaxed and was like, okay, just go with it and just relax and get down this hill. And I think I still cramped. But basically Kirsten Sweetland was with me, and we ran, and as well as Annabelle Luxford, and the 3 of us were running together. And I thought, okay, just settle. We've got a 2.5 minute lead on the second pack. The only person that's going to run you down out here is Mariana Ojeda from Brazil, who's in the second pack. Knowing Emma at that time had pulled out, I think maybe it was we were about 5K in when she pulled out. And so basically we we're doing our laps, and the 3 of us had stayed together. And then with about, I think it was, I don't know if it was on the final lap or maybe a lap to go, Kirsten Sweetland just fell over.
Final lap. It was
a final lap
to go.
Okay.
Yeah, it was about a K to go before you make the.
Yeah, she just passed out. And Annabelle and I were like, whoa, what just happened there? But we were like, okay, we got to go. And so we went we round the corner, and there was one hill, and then you turn left into the long straightaway. And Annabelle attacked me on the hill, and I thought, oh my gosh, is that it? Is that all you got? This is fantastic. She attacked me, and I was like, I think I can cover this. I can cover this attack. And so I immediately came right back at her, because I was like, if she's faking this, I don't want to give her a chance if she's not faking it, right? And so I have to make her think that I have got a lot more in the tank. And so I immediately accelerated away from her, like covered the gap a little bit, and then immediately attacked right away and got up, turned the corner, and I attacked again, because I was like, you got to put the last nail in the coffin, otherwise they'll just keep coming back at you. And so, I don't even remember that stretch. I think I was floating. I couldn't believe that I had the opportunity to win that race. And with such a big prize purse. But I think even the main thing was that it was one of our main goals for the season. And we got to achieve it.
It's great to hit it. Yeah. To hit an outcome goal is always so amazing.
Yeah. I had so many setbacks during, all the years, and you're just like, wow, this year is like coming together for us. So anyway, that was an amazing day, and we celebrated, and I mean, even you were there. Probably cost you. I know cost you the race, but I really appreciated you being up there.
That was funny. I remember I was watching it. It was on TV actually. I was sitting in the hotel room, and I was getting set to go, and then you had 5K remaining, and suddenly it was just the 3 of you, and I was like, oh hell, I've got it. So I was out on the course, and then made my way up to the finishing line. I had my race pack on my back because I was racing shortly after you. And anyway, I was there at the finish, which was fantastic. And to see you win was just like, wow. Yeah. And then I get a tap on the shoulder and it was like, Greg, the men's race starts in 45 minutes and it's a 10K bike away. And I was like, I didn't want to leave. I was like, I was so euphoric with your win. And then I remember getting down to the lake, Gray's Lake, about 10, or however, maybe it's not 10K, but it was a decent ride, sprinting all the way there. And then everybody's already sort of lining up and I haven't even racked my bike yet. And all the boys like, hey, congrats, Greg. It was like I'd won. Yeah. Like I'd already won.
Well done.
And I was like, yep, I don't have to do anything. And I must admit, that was one race when I look back in my career where I was like, Greg, you were in really great shape in 2007 because I was focusing on the Lifetime Fitness series and I was using this Hyvee as our last hit out before I had to try and win Minneapolis the next month. And I look back, my head wasn't in it and I ended up coming fifth, but it was kind of like, but it was still an amazing day. And you end up winning by about 15 seconds. What was also interesting, I touched on the heat and humidity of that race. 18 women pulled out that day because of the conditions. And it wasn't just Kirsten Sweetland that collapsed. There was quite a few that collapsed on the sideline. Because I think you guys raced, like, I think we were later. I think we got the cooler weather, the men. I think we were like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I think you women were like at midday or 1 p.m. So, but then you went on, to go hit your next 2 goals with both the World Championships and Beijing.
Yeah, and I don't know if this was this year. I'm pretty sure, unless it was another year, but I think we had Edmonton. Wasn't Edmonton squeezed in between?
Yeah, Edmonton was the following week.
And you and I kind of were like, okay, well, you just had a huge high, and this was something we recognized where you just had a huge high. Scrap Edmonton, let that one just ride out because honestly, that's one of the things. Like you go to Edmonton, like I've even heard other people say it. Yeah, I had just had a great race the weekend before, and then I raced the next weekend, and I did terrible. I was still just as fit. Well, but your emotions, you had taken every last drop out of your emotions, and your physical couldn't catch up, and it actually hurts, but you forget the hurt. You didn't remember, like you're saying, I didn't remember the heat. I don't remember that day at all. All I remember is that euphoric feeling coming across the line, having, accomplished what I did at the time. And it's just kind of, so that was one of the big things that we kind of learned in that little process of going, that's right. Let it sit, let those big wins sit. And it's funny because I actually drew on that when I went to Hamburg. So I committed to doing Hamburg and then having trials 2 weeks later. And when I went to Hamburg, I was in a sprint finish with my little nemesis, Emma Snowsill. And Vanessa Fernandez had already gone up the road and she had won that day. And then Emma and I were vying for second and third. And we had about 200 meters to go. And Emma had caught me. She'd gone through everybody else. And I was like, no. I just want to, like the win was gone and, second, I still wanted second for sure, but I knew I had Olympic trials, which were far more important to me at the time to try and make this Olympic team, having missed 04. And so when I got in a sprint finish with Emma, who I'm definitely a better sprint finisher, but she's definitely faster over the 10K. So she was coming at me pretty hard. And so I tried to stay with her and I did, but I thought, you know what? I'm not going to sprint finish here because if you go too high, you will not be able to perform in 2 weeks' time. Or let's say I'm not going to risk not being able to perform. I don't know. And so I did, challenge her to the line, but I didn't tap into that next level of sprint that I know I have, but I know is super taxing. And so I settled for third. And not to say that she didn't possibly take it away from me either, but I didn't fight for it, Regrets, maybe a little bit because I love the fight, but at the same time, was so much more satisfied having the opportunity to be on the Olympic team that, I wasn't going to risk it. And so it was funny. I wanted to share that little bit because I do think it was an integral part of your progression and the detail that you kind of need that kind of can sometimes be overlooked, this emotional detail,
Oh, it's massive. Well, I think you educated me a lot throughout my
with that
career on
the highs and lows,
managing.
right?
Yeah, the highs and lows,
Yeah.
and finding that you got to be somewhat in the middle. But when these surprising highs do come along, the unexpected win, the euphoric sprint over Michellie, or the running over the top of Annabelle Luxford, and suddenly winning a huge day. These days that hit you, and you're almost unprepared, and so emotionally it's very taxing.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think it's important to sometimes be very present in life and let these moments really just sit, and enjoy the fact something that you've worked for most of your life towards. Be there for that moment and just let it sit.
I agree.
But at the same time, like you said, I like how you said that, basically understanding these huge emotional efforts, the taxing toll, the yin and yang effect of these highs and lows. And I remember us both sitting down after Hyvee and going, no, don't go to Edmonton. It was a short trip for us too. It was an easy one, but it was like, you know what, let this one just be.
Yeah.
And if you go on to Edmonton and come anything other than a win, now you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm only as good as my last race, kind of thing, right?
Whereas, it could have set me up for the whole rest of the summer. I could have lost confidence for Hamburg. I could have lost confidence for trials. And I think that was a little integral part of our season that was well managed. I think
Yeah. Well, I think, and then just to briefly go over it, you went off to Beijing.
Yeah, so I flew back.
Incredible race.
Yeah, flew back home for a few days and then took off. And I actually remember waking up the morning of the race, and I woke up and that was actually for the Olympics. Another story for that. It ended up working out. That I made it. I don't know, maybe I was younger, but traveling west is always easier than traveling east for me. And so I think that was another thing that I held confidence in. And, I just sleep when I get there for 12 hours. And I think that's what we ended up doing. And I ended up, being able to make the Olympic team.
Yeah, that was it. That was a huge moment. I know Sarah Haskins put up a huge fight and ran with you, I think, till about 5 kilometers. And Sarah did end up making the Olympic team later on, but I know you were both vying for that first position onto the team. And that was just it. I think, looking at your career and some years that stand out, I think 2007 was amazing. Obviously, you then went on to go to the Olympics. You had a fourth place, which
brutal.
But what people don't know is that you hadn't ridden a bike for 12 weeks. A cleat broke, and then you sprained your foot or whatever, and wasn't able to ride your bike. But you could run in pain. Yeah. But you chose to do one, right?
Yeah. So basically, going into 2008, it was not great in the sense that I think I was out on a bike ride one day and doing hill repeats and out of the saddle and just going, and my cleat broke, and then I think I sprained my plantar, and I could not shake it. I must have torn a bit. And so I came home and, I had the guys from, I don't remember the name of the company, but anyway, the local bike group, bike shop.
Oh, the bike shop in Boulder would be, who were we using then? Sorry, it'll come to me in a second.
Anyway, they had a look at it and they're like, wow, your cleats are in a position of, being a sprinter. And I was like, what? It's like, no wonder I can't time trial very well. You're not using the right muscles. It's all gastroc instead of using the quads and the glutes more. And so we changed that. It was a mess of, that summer of trying to, but basically I just said, okay, well, we know the Olympics is going to be hot. So let's focus on being super fit, like as lean as you can be, but of course as strong as you can be. And then, don't worry about the bike. So I just stopped riding. I would only ride in racing, and I ran 20K every other day and 30K every other day. And I was swimming 6K a day. And honestly, when I stepped on the starting line for Beijing, because it wasn't going to be a biker's race either, I wasn't that concerned. I knew how the race was going to pan out. And so we knew it was just going to end up being a run race, no swim bike pack off the front. So that was another factor going into my training leading in. And essentially, it panned out that way. And I had gotten a cortisone shot in my foot to get me through the Olympics. So I didn't have to have pain on the day, but pretty much the whole summer I ran in pain and took an ice bath every afternoon to manage that pain. And, really I was super aerobically fit, but I couldn't do a lot of the threshold work because I felt like if I got up on my toes, it would make my foot worse. So I was just doing a lot of running. And, it's crazy, but I really think that missing out on like 2 or 3 thresholds is the difference between me podiuming and getting fourth. I basically, at about 5K, the race, we knew that Emma and Vanessa were going to be tough to beat. And not that I was waiting for third, but I thought, you know what, let's just go for it anyway. Do the best you can. Who knows? They could crack or whatever. So I went out fast, as I do. And Andrea Hewitt was there as well out at the first 5K. And she was an unknown. She was young and she'd done okay in a couple of races. And I thought, oh no, it's just my luck that, one of the young girls is going to have their day on the Olympic day. I'm like, I've been fighting for 4 years for this thing. So I didn't give her an inch. And we knew that Emma Moffitt would be, a player. And I thought, I could sit with just Emma Moffitt and just vie for third, or you could go and try to solidify a third. Well, I went for it and I tried to solidify a third, maybe a second, maybe a first, who knows? Well, at 5K, I cramped because I was going above my fitness level, as I do with racing. And so I basically cramped up, and Andrea Hewitt had that time fallen off, but Emma Moffitt was strong and steady, came over the top of me, and she kind of opened up about a 25-second gap, and I clawed back at her and probably brought it back to, I don't know, whatever it was, but I just didn't have enough to come back over the top of her. And so that pretty much solidified my fourth place. Super disappointing, but at the same time, I felt like I did everything I could to maximize it. And yeah, I couldn't have had a greater experience than I had at the Beijing Olympics.
Yeah, but you had a good team with you, with Julie Swale.
Yeah.
It was 6 seconds between you and Emma Moffitt at the end. But
exactly.
It's like we often talk about. Sometimes it looks much closer on paper than when you're in the race. That 6 seconds might have.
It was forever.
It
It was like basically I brought it back to 6 seconds.
Well, you are the best in the family still, because you came fourth at the Olympics by 6 seconds and I came fourth in the Olympics by 8 seconds. So there you go. Well, look, Laura, you're going to be a co-host of mine at times in the future here for everybody listening, probably once you stop breastfeeding. So hopefully throughout 2021, I bring you on for some of the shows that we'll be doing. We're going to be co-hosting together. And I really look forward to that because I think we'll have a lot of fun. And we're missing a tremendous amount of what you did, but for somebody that has raced for 20 years, it's hard to cover everything you did. But basically, you did go on to London Olympics, and that has its own story. You then did go do Ironmans and 70.3s and had a bit of success there too. There's so much more I do want to talk to you about in a future episode or when you're a co-host in terms of the mindset strategies and dealing with expectations and all of that. But I think we got kids that need to be looked after.
Get to work.
And it's back. You've been up since 3. I really appreciate it. But now it's time for you to get to work.
Exactly.
But it really has been really great to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'm going to, I'll see you at home in a little while.
All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and I'll, for people that want to follow you, just quickly tell me I'll put them in show notes, but people, what are your handles for
Facebook?
Instagram?
Oh, yeah, Instagram.
Whatever.
Yeah. Instagram is Laura Bennett World. Facebook is Laura Reback Bennett. And I don't even really do Twitter that much anymore, but Laura R. Bennett. We didn't quite get all the names when we didn't get our names. No. So they're all different things, but Yeah. And then, of course,
right.
BennettEndurance.com.
BennettEndurance.com. And you also have Well Balanced Family.
Yeah, Well Balanced Family. Yeah, that's more for all the kids stuff. I'm not sure if anybody on here is that interested in that stuff, but if you are, wellbalancedfamily.com, and you can find us on those handles off of there.
All right, that was fantastic. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Thank you, Laura, the most beautiful person in the world,
Thanks,
for coming on. Don't hang up. We're going to stop now. Cheers, everybody.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks a lot for listening to Be With Champions. If you've enjoyed the show, your support would truly be appreciated. You can visit the Be With Champions Patreon page, or you can subscribe with your podcast app of choice. Don't miss the next episode, so subscribe and be notified. For show notes, if you want to know more, please visit bennettendurance.com. I'm Phil Liggett, and on behalf of Greg Bennett, here's to the next time, and I hope you will join Greg again very soon.